Good morning, friends. Good to see you this morning. Good to be with you this morning, um, and good to have you with me. Good to be together on this day, this Monday morning, Monday, June 14th. I know they tell you not to. Actually, they tell you not to mention dates or stuff like that when you're doing these streams because not everybody's watching live, but I think it just helps clarify. And if you're not watching live, you'll know how far, you'll know which day we're working on when you get to it. Anyway, I'm Brian. I'm the pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church in Waynesboro. Love being the pastor here. I know you hear me say that a lot, but I mean it a lot. So that's good. Just because I say it doesn't mean it's not true, right? Just because I say it a lot doesn't mean it's not true. And you are here for another episode of PB Reads the Bible. And we are on our journey through the book of Genesis. We are on day 24. There are times we've read more than one chapter, so we're actually on chapter 34. And we might get through 2 chapters today as well. We'll see how that goes. I'm not going to promise one way or another on that one. Yeah, won't promise one way or another. We might make it through 1 chapter. We might make it through 2. I do want to talk a little bit about some background before we jump into it, though, as well. So that's why we're here. And I see that we have some folks watching, which is awesome. And somebody's already popped in there. Good morning, Cheryl. Good to have you with us. So go ahead and do likewise if you're watching. And if you're watching live or if you're watching later in a recording or something like that, still let me know. I'm not taking attendance. It's not romper. It's not, roll call and making sure you're following along. It's just I'd like to know who it is that's watching and, see what kind of benefit and all that kind of stuff. So same thing when you have questions or comments about the video, about the reading. Feel free to mark them in the comment section here of the stream, and I will try to answer your questions or address your comments as we go along. Good morning, Marilyn. Good to have you here. Keep in mind, I don't always see the comments right away. Sometimes for some reason I don't see them until we end the video and I go back in later in the day, and then even if I go right back in, sometimes there's comments there that I missed somehow. So it doesn't always show because I'm looking at it. When you see me looking off to the side, that's what I'm looking. If you see me looking to my right, then I'm checking my cell phone. That's because maybe somebody's texting me, because you can always do it that way too. If you wanted to ask a question and you were a little concerned about privacy, or if there's something you wanted me to be in prayer about, because I that's important to me, shoot me the text with either of those things. And when you see me looking off to my right, that's why. 570-351-1619 is the cell number. Okay, so we're going to be looking at chapter 34, excuse me, and chapter 35. Now, behind me on the screen is Jacob and his 12 sons. And I put that up here because we're getting to a point where the sons are going to start taking a larger role in the story. Okay, Jacob's getting older, and the boys obviously are getting older. This one is Benjamin. He has not yet been born. Okay, let's just remember that one. There's 11 that have been born so far. Let me go ahead and share my screen, actually, so that you can see this picture better. Okay. You can see that picture better. So, excuse me, there's Jacob with his 12 sons. So far in the story, 11 have been born. Benjamin has not yet been born. A couple more chapters, I believe, before he. Don't remember now. Should be a little thing there. Oh, yep. Next chapter. We might get to it today. If we get to chapter 35, we'll get to Benjamin's birth. And I did say the other day that it's important to remember the birth order. Okay, it's important to remember the birth order. So maybe you did something with a graph like this, downloaded something, or maybe you wrote the names down as we were reading them. Which way? There we go. So here they are. Here are the 12 sons and listed one daughter. Okay, listed one daughter. That would be Dinah right here. She's the only one listed by name. This is important for today. This is important for today. So culturally, at the time, and not just at that time, it goes on and on. The eldest son would be well, especially at that time, would have been considered the most important. That's the person that as we've mentioned before, gets the larger share of the estate at the at the passing of the father. Okay, they inherit the most of the property. They get a double share compared to everybody else. Of course, the more sons you have, the smaller amount that anybody gets. But the eldest still gets double. Still gets a double portion. The other thing about the eldest son is I don't want to say replacing the father, but fulfilling some of the roles of the father. It is their responsibility to care for and protect the other children, the younger ones, the younger siblings. So Reuben should be the most important and revered of the sons of Jacob. However, Judah is the one who becomes the most revered and remembered of the sons of Jacob, of the 12 sons of Israel. Because remember, Jacob's name does get changed to Israel, has been changed, and yet they still refer to him as Jacob in these next couple chapters in particular. So what's the difference? Because when the land is distributed and when the land in Israel is divided into the two kingdoms following the death of Solomon, you get the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom is Israel, and the southern kingdom is what? Judah, the kingdom of Judah. Why, right? Why has Judah become so important? Shouldn't the lower kingdom, the southern kingdom, be the kingdom of Reuben, right? Because he's the head of the clan. He is the eldest son. But no, Judah seems to take this priority, and the land is named after him. And even get that expression, a lion of Judah, the lion of Judah, which has even been adopted, I should say, adopted to be a reference to Jesus, but it wasn't at the time. It wasn't at the time, but they talk about the Lion of Judah, that the tribe of Judah is pretty powerful, and the land of Judah is powerful. So that becomes that principle. So why does Judah end up becoming the most prominent of the sons, rather than Reuben, Simeon, and Levi? Well, we may not have a perfect answer to that, but we see some clues. We see some clues over some of these succeeding chapters here in Genesis. Okay, over the rest of this book, including today's. I should have, and I should point out too that Dinah comes from and let me just bring that back up. I should have said it while I had it there, right? Sorry about that. Notice who are the sons of, or the children of Leah, right? The first four sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, then a couple others. But Dinah is listed as a daughter of Leah. So she not only is she's a sibling of all of the boys, or half sibling of all of the boys, but she is a full sister to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. All right, so just keep those kind of things in mind, or keep your note handy, your graph handy. And let's jump into chapter 34. Don't need to mention that one. All right, so chapter 34. One day, Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, went to visit some of the young women who lived in the area. But when the local prince Shechem, son of Hamor the Hittite, saw Dinah, he seized her and raped her. But then he fell in love with her, and he tried to win her affection with tender words. He said to his father Hamor, "Get me this young girl. I want to marry her." Soon Jacob heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dinah. We're not told how. But since his sons were out in the fields herding his livestock, he said nothing until they returned. Pause. The part that's the word or phrase that's translated "said nothing" is elsewhere translated as "to learn for the purpose of learning." For the purpose of learning. Okay, so Jacob is home. The sons, at least the oldest ones, because some of them are still young, are out working in the fields, herding the sheep, and they're away. They're away. Um, and because of that, Jacob wants to wait until they come back for the purpose of learning and for the purpose of having a conversation. Jacob would seem to be concerned about the future. Jacob is concerned about the future. He is concerned that his daughter was defiled. Uh, okay, and that's important that we have that here. Keep that in mind because it gets changed elsewhere. All right. He is concerned that his daughter has been defiled, but he also has this idea of the promise of this land, the promise of this land, and he doesn't want to see. He sees it as this promise as being in jeopardy, at least to an extent, because of this, and potentially because of what he does next. So he wants to be careful. He wants to protect the future. And so he's being cautious in what he's doing. Okay? Continuing. Hamor, Shechem's father, came to discuss the matter with Jacob. Okay? So before Jacob had a chance to talk with his sons, Hamor and Shechem show up. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons had come in from the field as soon as they had heard what had happened. Pause. Different translations put that differently. This certainly makes it sound like while they were away, they heard what happened. Other translations make it that they returned and found out what happened. So in the heat of finding this out, they intervene. They were shocked and furious that their sister had been raped. Shechem had done a disgraceful thing against Jacob's family, something that should never be done. Pause. So notice the change. The author is being specific. Jacob is upset because they defiled his daughter. The sons are upset because they have done a disgraceful thing to Jacob's family, and literally or alternatively can be translated to Israel. Okay, done a disgraceful thing to Israel or in Israel, not referring to Israel, their father, but referring to the future nation, that they have somehow done this disgraceful thing to tarnish Israel's image. So we see, excuse me, we see this shift, this change in the concern. Jacob's concern is with his daughter and with the future, whereas the sons are concerned with the community's image and how this act can affect their community. Something that should never be done. Continuing, Hamor tried to speak with Jacob and his sons. My son Shechem is truly in love with your daughter, he said. Please let him marry her. In fact, let's arrange other marriages too. You give us your daughters for our sons, and we will give you our daughters for your sons. And you may live among us. The land is open to you. Settle here and trade with us, and feel free to buy property in the area. Pause. I'm just going to pause. Now, let's put our 21st century sensibilities aside, okay? Because rape is inexcusable, it's horrible, should never happen, and Shechem should be in jail. Putting ourselves back in this culture, though, it's looked at differently. And what Hamor is offering is far and above what the laws of the time would have said were acceptable and just and equitable for the commission of said crime, even based on future Israel's laws. Because remember, this is prequel. This is being written after this story of the Exodus. So this is most likely being written after the rules and laws have been set up as far as what is the right thing to do, what is the right, how do you pay off your debt for rape. Hamor is offering far more than what was required. What was required? What was required was the man who committed the act was supposed to marry the daughter and pay the bride price for her, the full bride price, provided the father would accept that. Okay, if not, he would take the bride price but not give his daughter away. That was acceptable as well. But it was kind of one for one. Hamor is suggesting far more than just let's have this marriage, let's do all this. And we'll go a step farther. Let's arrange other marriages between your people and my people, between your sons and my daughters, between my daughters and my sons and your daughters. Take portions of the land, live here with us. So Hamor, Hamor is trying to be extremely honorable. It's hard for us to grasp this as, how can rape be turned into something honorable, any kind of an honorable situation? But he is doing everything he can to not only maintain, but elevate the level of honor. And he is paying far more, offering to pay more and do far more than he was required by the laws at the time. Okay? So Hamor is doing all that. And he's saying this, or at least trying to say this, to Jacob and the sons. Then Shechem himself spoke to Dinah's father and brothers. Please be kind to me and let me marry her, he begged. I will give you whatever you ask. No matter what dowry or gift you demand, I will gladly pay it. Just give me the girl as my wife. Pause. And in Hebrew, it's not only is he willing to pay the father, but he's willing to give Dinah whatever they want to kind of reimburse her. It can be read both ways in Hebrew. So it's a little bit vague perhaps, or intentionally, or maybe he was saying both. Maybe he was saying both. He's he's infatuated, he's over the moon, talk about love at first sight kind of thing. He's completely infatuated and in love with this woman. But since Shechem had defiled their sister Dinah, Jacob's sons responded deceitfully to Shechem and his father Hamor. Pause. There's that word again, right? Deceitfully. This family is loaded with deceit. As the sheep bleats. This is another episode of As the Sheep Bleats. They have no intention. They have no intention. The author is making that very clear by using that word deceitfully. They have no intention of being honorable with Hamor and Shechem. They have no intention of living up to any kind of agreement with them. By using this word deceitfully, the author's setting that right there. This is all a plan. They want vengeance. They don't want just to be made up, and they're saying this without that conversation with Jacob. They're doing this without the conversation with Jacob. Now remember, Jacob's name was changed, even though they're still using it here, from Jacob to Israel. Jacob means deceiver, but Israel means, struggles with God, or fights God, etc., etc. So they're not taking that opportunity to talk with him. They're jumping right in here to deceitfully talk with Hamor and Shechem. They said to them, "We couldn't possibly allow this because you're not circumcised." Pause. That's not what they said 2 minutes ago, if that. They have changed it again. They're no longer concerned with their sister being defiled. They're concerned all of a sudden with this religious thing of being circumcised. Okay? Because they're acting deceitfully. The one has nothing to do with the other. They have moved their anger from the fact that their sister was raped and defiled, which should be acceptable to pay off, or to go through what they've done, him marry her and stuff like that to make it even. So they've shifted their anger, their righteous anger, from the fact that she was raped to this thing, well, you're not circumcised, so this is totally unacceptable. Continuing, it would be a disgrace to our sister, for our sister, no, not to our sister. It would be a disgrace to us, for our sister, to marry a man like you. But here is the solution. If every man among you will be circumcised like we are, then we will give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters for ourselves. We will live among you and become one people. But if you don't agree to be circumcised, we will take her and be on our way. Hamor and his son Shechem agreed to their proposal. Shechem wasted no time in acting on this request, for he wanted Jacob's daughter desperately. Shechem was a highly respected member of his family, and he went with his father Hamor to present this proposal to the leaders at the town gate. Pause, brief aside, whatever. Remember, the town gate is where people gathered, and it's the courthouse, we might say. It's where things like this would have been decided and ratified, approved, and disseminated to the population. So, remember, the sons were acting deceitfully. Hamor and Shechem have been acting very honorably, aside from the rape. And they still think that the sons are being nice, or being righteous, or are being forthright about the whole thing. These men are our friends, they said. Let's invite them to live here among us and trade freely. Look, the land is large enough to hold them. We can take their daughters as wives and let them marry ours. But they will consider staying here and becoming one people with us only if all our men are circumcised just as they are. But if we do this, all their livestock and possessions will eventually be ours. Come, let's agree to their terms and let them settle here among us. So all the men in the town council agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the town was circumcised. But 3 days later, when their wounds were still sore, two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, who were Dinah's full brothers, took their swords and entered the town without opposition. Then they slaughtered every male there, including Hamor and his son Shechem. They killed them with their swords, then took Dinah from Shechem's house and returned to their camp. Pause. Pause. Simeon and Levi. If you look at your diagram of your graph, your family tree, your listing, whatever, where are they in that whole family tree thing? As it said in the passage, they are Dinah's full brothers because they are also the children of Leah. They're not the oldest. Neither of them is the oldest. Reuben is the oldest. He's not part of this. But they are numbers 2 and 3. They are numbers 2 and 3. So remember, the eldest would be responsible for, the care, the family name, the taking care of all the siblings, acting sort of as an extra father. But in that person's absence, really, Simeon and Levi should be kind of doing the same thing. They should be honorable, and they're not being honorable because they all acted deceitfully, we're told. But there's numbers 2 and 3. So their failure here at doing the right thing seems to be an indication, or perhaps the author explaining why they're not going to be very important in the future. They're not going to be as important in the future as Judah, who becomes, like I said, the land of Judah, the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom, is known as Judah. All right. Now, continuing. Meanwhile, the rest of Jacob's sons arrived. Finding the men slaughtered, they plundered the town because their sister had been defiled there. Not why. They seized all the flocks and herds and donkeys, everything they could lay their hands on, both inside the town and outside the fields. They looted all their wealth and plundered their houses. They also took all their little children and wives and led them away as captives. Pause. So Simeon and Levi are responsible for going into town and killing all the men now, but the rest of the brothers don't seem, aren't very just or honorable either. They come along, well, that job's done, so they go to looting. They go straight to looting. It's pretty apparent by this that it has nothing to do with the fact that their sister was defiled, even though they say that, even though the author says that. If they really wanted vengeance solely for the rape of Dinah, perhaps killing Shechem and his father Hamor, maybe. But killing all the men, this has nothing to do with Dinah. Stealing all their property, looting the place, taking away all the women and children to be captives. It's gone way beyond vengeance at this point. There's something else driving them. Greed comes to mind. Greed comes to mind. Continuing, afterward, Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have ruined me. You've made me stink among all the people of this land, among all the Canaanites and Perizzites. We are so few that they will join forces and crush us. I will be ruined and my entire household will be wiped out. But why should we let them treat our sister like a prostitute?" They retorted angrily. End of chapter, and that's going to be the end for today. I think we're not going to read chapter 35 today. We'll save that one for tomorrow. But we'll talk a little bit more about this. Now so Jacob's angry. Jacob's upset, and why? Why? He says, "You've made me stink." If you join me, if you journeyed through Exodus with me, you might remember that was what the Hebrew supervisors of the slaves complained to Moses and Moses and his brother Aaron. Woo, I knew it would come to me eventually. That was their complaint to Moses and Aaron, that you've made us stink in woo, before Pharaoh, in the nose of Pharaoh. Okay, so it's about honor, and you've dishonored me. You've made me look bad. You've made me stink. Nobody's going to want to negotiate with me or come into agreements with me. They can join forces and completely wipe us out. And he's concerned about the future. This is all going to be lost. This is all going to be lost, not only to me, but to the future. And again, they're throwing in at the end, should we let them treat our sister like a prostitute? They didn't want to treat her like a prostitute. That's not what they were doing. He wanted to marry her. Right? So, yeah, with those couple sneezes, especially, we're gonna pause there at the end of chapter 34. We're not gonna get to 35 today. Well, my friends, thank you for joining me this morning or this afternoon, this evening, tomorrow, whenever it is you're watching this. I appreciate that. I'm humbled by the fact that that you folks want to do that and you're spending time with me journeying through the Bible. I do pray that God has spoken to you in some way through this, and that you have learned or relearned something today. As you go about your day, not only today, but every day, keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open to what our God is doing in your life, in the life of those around you. When you see it, say, thanks, Papa, and then tell somebody about it, because we need to hear those things. Until next time, be blessed, my friends.